The gala shimmered with money, power, and hidden cruelty. When Victoria Langford, wife of a billionaire investor, saw Dr. Adrian Cole standing near the stage, she smirked and whispered loud enough for cameras to hear, "Who let the help into the executive circle?" Then, with a cruel smile, she lifted her glass and poured it on him. The room froze, guests gasping behind forced laughter. What Victoria didn't know was this: the man she just humiliated wasn't her husband's business partner. He was the man who owned their entire $2 billion empire. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and arrogance. A string quartet played softly as billionaires clinked glasses, each one pretending to be the center of the universe. Dr. Adrian Cole, founder and CEO of Cole Dynamics, stood quietly near the edge of the crowd, unnoticed, unbothered, and exactly where he wanted to be. He didn't need the spotlight. The empire he'd built spoke louder than any introduction could. But arrogance always needed an audience, and tonight it found him. Across the room, Victoria Langford, wife of billionaire investor Charles Langford, spotted Adrian. Her eyes narrowed, her smirk confident. "Who invited him?" she muttered to a group of executives who immediately began laughing, desperate to stay in her favor. When Adrian raised his glass politely in acknowledgement, Victoria's grin sharpened. "Oh, how sweet," she said. "He thinks he belongs here." She began striding toward him, her husband watching helplessly from a distance, already sensing disaster. "Dr. Cole," she said, her tone dripping with mockery, "I didn't recognize you without your staff." Adrian turned, his expression calm. "Mrs. Langford, enjoying the evening?" "I was," she said, "until I realized they're letting consultants into billionaires' galas now." A ripple of awkward laughter moved through the crowd. Someone coughed. Cameras turned discreetly. The moment had weight. Everyone could feel it. Adrian didn't respond. Silence made her uneasy, so she pushed harder. "Tell me, what brings you here? Catering? Security?" He met her gaze without flinching. "Business," he said simply. Victoria laughed. "Business? Oh, darling, this event is for founders and investors, not service providers." Her words sliced through the air, loud enough for the nearby journalists to hear. A few guests exchanged looks, uncomfortable but silent. Adrian didn't move. He didn't blink. He just set down his glass, slow, deliberate, and said, "You're right. Not everyone here belongs." Victoria raised an eyebrow. "Exactly." Then, smiling for the cameras, she reached for his glass and poured the wine across his hand. The room gasped. The quartet stopped playing. A single violin note hung unfinished. Charles Langford rushed forward. "Victoria, oh, don't be dramatic," she said, waving him off. "It's just a joke." Adrian stared at her, not with anger, but with something colder. "No," he said softly. "It's a message. And you've delivered it perfectly." He turned, wiped his hand with a napkin, and walked away. Victoria laughed, turning to the crowd. Some people just can't take humor, but her laughter faltered when she saw Charles's face. He wasn't laughing. He was pale. "What?" she asked. "You have no idea who that man is," he whispered. "Oh, please," she scoffed. "Another vendor?" "No," Charles said. "He owns the company that funds half our assets." "You just humiliated Dr. Adrian Cole, the man behind Cole Dynamics." Her face drained of color. "That's impossible." "Impossible," he said quietly, "is what he builds for a living." Across the room, Adrian reached into his jacket, pulled out his phone, and typed one word: "Proceed." No one noticed. 15 minutes later, phones across the ballroom began buzzing. Notifications popped up. Investors checked their messages, then froze. Cole Dynamics had just withdrawn from every Langford partnership. All contracts, all joint holdings, all infrastructure links, gone. Charles stumbled toward Adrian, his voice trembling. "Adrian, please." Adrian turned. "Charles, I warned you months ago about what happens when arrogance leads your house. Tonight, you chose your silence. Now you can live in it." Charles stammered. You can't end everything over a glass of wine. Adrian's eyes hardened. It wasn't the wine. It was the lesson. The room was now completely still. Phones lit up with breaking alerts. Cole Dynamics divests from Langford Global Holdings. $2 billion merger collapses. Victoria tried to speak. Dr. Cole, I didn't mean... He looked at her calmly. Intent doesn't erase impact. You wanted to remind me of my place. So let me remind you of yours. She stepped forward, desperate. We can fix this. You already did, Adrian said. Just not the way you expected. Security quietly escorted the press out. Charles sank into a chair, watching his world collapse in real time. Within the hour, Langford Global's stocks plummeted. Bankers called. Partners withdrew. Their empire, once a monument of arrogance, was burning in front of its owners. Adrian stood near the exit, untouched by the chaos. A journalist approached him, whispering, Dr. Cole, is it true you pulled out of the Langford deal because of tonight's incident? He smiled faintly. No, I pulled out because of the culture that allowed it. Then he walked out. The next morning, the headlines read, CEO erases $2 billion deal after public humiliation at gala. Billionaire couple loses empire in one night. On every network, the video replayed. The moment Victoria poured the wine, the silence, the look on Adrian's face. Millions watched, learning a lesson in quiet power. Days later, Victoria requested a private meeting. Adrian agreed. She arrived pale, exhausted, and trembling. Dr. Cole, I wanted to apologize. He stopped her with a hand gesture. You've already taught the world what arrogance looks like. I don't need your apology. Tears welled in her eyes. You ruined us. No, he said softly. You did that yourself. I just gave the truth a microphone. She looked down. So this is revenge? He shook his head. Revenge screams. Justice whispers. He stood, preparing to leave. I didn't destroy you, Mrs. Langford. I simply stopped protecting you. She reached out weakly. Please, he turned one last time. I don't hold grudges. I hold standards. And with that, Dr. Adrian Cole walked out. The man who turned humiliation into history and silence into power.